Today's video is about one of the few things you can still do in this release of Midnight once you reach max level, on your way to getting to max level, when we are still in this, I guess, pre-season release version of the game, where many of the features are still unavailable, from the raids to Mythic Plus, even right now Mythic Zeros, this one being early access and not being available. A few weekly quests also are still not available, but as you go through, getting to max level on one or multiple of your characters, you will notice one of the things that are still there, of course, is the reputation gains with the new Renown Factions in the expansion. Now, what is the relevant thing, of course, is that while we are in this period of several activities being limited, the amount and the type of gear you can get is not that much, meaning that this way will be actually the way for you to get the best pieces of gear before the release of the season. And even once Mythic Zero becomes available in the next weekly reset, this reward will be on par with a Mythic Zero piece of loot. The only difference is that this one is deterministic. You can literally pick and choose, which items you're going to be getting from these factions, whereas in Mythic Zero it's kind of random. So what we're talking about, which is something that has happened before in the previous expansions, is the fact that now the four major factions for your expansion leveling, the Silvermoon Court, the Amani Tribe, the Harati, and the Singularity in the four main leveling zones, will also reward you with a piece of Champion Track 1 out of 6 gear once you reach a certain renown level. In detail, we're talking about the Silvermoon Court giving you a helm piece of gear at renown 9, the Amani Tribe will give you a necklace at renown 9 as well, the Arati will give you a belt at renown 8, and the Singularity a trinket at renown 7. Now, the first thing that is worth pointing out, which will be the most welcome one, is the fact that there is no kind of min-max grind requires some sort of degenerate spam of some mass killing of mobs or anything of this sort in order to reach these breakpoints of renown. The basis, the easiest and closest thing to do while you level, so without even, directly aiming to do these things for the gear, but just because you're leveling, is to complete all of the main storyline quests of each region, of each zone, as well as the side quests which are tied to the Sojourner achievements. These are all quests that will reward you with some rep with the relevant factions in the zone. Complete all of the peaks, exploration achievements, because every zone is going to have 4 to 5 of these peaks, each of which reward you with 100 reputation with the faction, as well as the lore objects, or very simply the one-time turn-in quest increases for each of the factions. And that is before even getting to max level, so we weren't talking about also being able to do world quests, also being able to be killing rares every day, as well as things like weekly quests or even dungeon weekly quests for each of the factions that you can do. So just by leveling and just by doing quests and exploring the zones, you should already be getting practically one renown level below this breakpoint, this checkpoint to get the piece of gear. This one, for example, was the Silvermoon Court after basically 100%ing the zones, but doing basically no world quest, no extra rep being given with the faction, and you're like less than 900 rep away from the piece of gear that you would be able to get from Renown 9. You can find multiple guides online or even use in-game add-ons like handy notes to point you towards, for example, all of the different peaks to go to get the 100 rep, or for the lore hunter, since each and every one of these lore objects give you 250 rep with each faction, and in total it will be about 70 to 80% of a renown level for each faction if you collect all of these lore objects in each of the 4 zones. So the important point is that it's not really that grind related. We haven't gotten to the point where, for example, you have to min-max trying to buy contracts for one of the factions and then spam a whole bunch of world quests to squeeze every possible bit of rep you might want to get. These are very, very easy to get, these 4 champion piece items with the 4 factions. Now, luckily, about purchasing these items, I know some of you might be shuddering already once you realize this. You're like, okay, I need to buy these 4 items from these 4 Renown Factions. Imagine you want to play 2 or 3 characters. It means you would have to buy, 4 and then 4 and then 4 on 3 different characters. And then you realize that you checked out these Renown vendors a couple times, and you have noticed that this new expansion-wide currency, the Void Light Marl, what you just grind and get from everywhere, is basically the main currency and the main requirements for all of these purchases. So you're like, hold on a second, if these are the prices, do I have to spend some 3,000 to 4,000 of these Void Lights for one character? And then if I have to also buy these pieces of gear with Renown with my second character, I also need to have 3,000 to 4,000 more of this resource to buy the pieces of gear. And I spent the entire leveling process. I got to max level. I even did some of the max level stuff, and I have like 2,000 right now. How am I supposed to get all of these thousands to buy these pieces of gear? Now, at the moment, perhaps also the reason why those items weren't even visible in the vendor themselves is because they are not even there, since this is early access, so at the best you are working your way to these Renown breakpoints for the next weekly reset for the gear to be available, because all of this gear comes from a quest, and the quest gets unlocked once you reach the breakpoint of the Renown levels, and then the quest will be redirecting you to complete one of the weekly events in one of the each 4 zones. So the Saltary's weekly quest in Silvermoon in Eversong is what you will be redirected for the weekly with Silvermoon, which is a 2k rep weekly. You have the Stormarion Assault in Voidstorm, another weekly for 1k rep this time, and then you also have the Abundance weekly quest for 1k rep per week with the Amani, and then the Legends of the Haranir in Havradar, another 1k rep weekly. None of which is available right now for you to complete, at least to get the rep and to get the weekly cash. Only, I believe, the Voidstorm event is the one that's working right now, still without the weekly reward because it's early access. But those are the weekly quests that you will be redirected to once you get the quest to get these items as rewards. That's why right now, basically, they're not even there in-game. But it is relevant still to point it out, because by the time the weekly reset comes and, for example, you can start doing Mythic Zeros, you already know that you have a potential trinket, a belt, a necklace, and a helmet in those slots for you at the same item level as what would come from a Mythic Zero dungeon. Now, the second point that players might have seen if they went on to read, for example, guides on how to min-max, which we have already established is not necessary. However, maybe some players wanted, for example, to be the first ones or to get quickly to high Renown levels to unlock profession recipes to make bank at the release of the expansion. That is a worthy effort, sure, but there is one thing that was discovered, which is the Darkmoon Faire. So, obviously, one of the things that happen very often is that since it happens often enough, whenever there is a new expansion or a new season, the same week, the following week, very shortly, the Darkmoon Faire event will go live. And what happens with the Darkmoon Faire? You can ride the carousel, you can put on your Darkmoon hat, and you can get your 10% max XP and 10% max rep gain. So, obviously, some of the guides were suggesting hold on for whenever today or tomorrow, whenever the Darkmoon Faire goes live, to get all of this max increase for your rep. However, what was data mined added at the release of Midnight was a aura modifier to the XP buff and the rep buff from the Darkmoon Faire, where it filtered the reputation gained by certain factions, which happened to be the Midnight factions, meaning all of the 4 main factions, but even sub-factions, the Magisters, the Fast Riders, the Blood Knight, the Prey experience you can get there, the Delve experience you can get, all of that is filtered away from the Darkmoon Faire. So even those who were planning or banking on waiting for the Darkmoon Faire to get max value on their stuff, like, save all of the side quests for when the Darkmoon Faire goes live, so you get all of the extra rep in there. Save the weeklies, because they give you, 2,000 reps, so you gain 200 extra of the Darkmoon Faire, etc., etc. It's not working. It has been nerfed by Blizzard, so that's not going to be a thing in this expansion for now. But this is the point on the early release of Midnight, and essentially the strongest pieces of gear you can get right now as you wait a few days for the release of the Mythic Zero, which will give you equivalent champion track gear 1 out of 6. Those are the 4 pieces of gear you can basically guarantee with not even that much effort when it comes to your renown gains with these 4 factions. And luckily, as we have explored, they won't require some sick grinding of currency in the open world, in different events, etc., because they will be given to you through quests. So this was the point for today's video on this Saturday, on this weekend of expansion release, as far as the early bits and pieces of gear you can get for yourself go. So for today, we can now leave each other. We're starting our goodbyes by thanking everyone for having watched the video, together with, of course, everyone else who's been supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, we're falling back on the old habits. That wasn't supposed to happen. We have been holding on for 5 months. Let's hope we can go back to our straight edge self.